Hey guys, so this is interesting. I was just reading recently that Jake Paul has officially been knocked out of the WBA rankings just like that. Like, and honestly, I mean, this might be the most revealing moment of his entire boxing experiment. And I hate to use the words experiment, I hate to use the words exercise, trial, because at the end of the day, like him, hate him, I mean, you have to give credit where credit is due. I mean, he's accomplished more than some people would ever dream of. Okay, this guy is, I mean, he came into entertainment at an early age. He became a very successful social media influencer, entrepreneur, business entrepreneur, has multiple businesses, very successful, and, recently turned pro boxer. So he's a professional athlete. And guys, he trains hard, all right? You have to understand, the fight that he just had against Anthony Joshua, Jake Paul fights at a cruiserweight. Okay, he's technically a cruiserweight. Although he came in a little bit heavier when he fought Mike Tyson, but you also have to understand that Mike Tyson's also 60. He was like 58 years old when he fought Jake Paul, and for Jake to take on the likes of Anthony Joshua, who's an active fighter. Yes, he's been out of the game for a little bit, but that's because he just took a break after his loss to Daniel Dubois. But, that in itself, some people may want to call it experiment. I don't. I mean, you know what? Some people even argue that Jake Paul actually moved a lot more in the ring against Anthony Joshua than Francis Ngannou did, and against his fight against Joshua. And so, every boxer has an off night. Okay, every fighter has an off night, and in this case, Jake Paul was outclassed. All right, I mean, it is what it is. I don't think he's going to argue as well. He did get in some clean shots. There were a couple rounds that were debatable, but as the round started to get deeper, or as it started to get deeper into the fight, clearly it looked like it was becoming a one-sided affair. So I want to dive a little bit into this whole rankings of the WBA, because the one thing that Jake really wants is he wants a title shot. He wants an opportunity to win a professional world title. And that very well may happen for him. But, I mean, it may not even be a matter of if, it could be a matter of when. So I don't know if you really agree with me here. There's a few folks that I was actually talking to earlier that were, I don't know, Shiraz, this is a tricky subject. I don't know if they really fully subscribe to my theory, but we had some interesting discussions. Let me just kind of leave it at that. So anyways, guys, let's get into it. Welcome back. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the new year. As the new year rolls in, gosh, did you guys get a chance to see all the unbelievable fireworks happening all around the world? It was absolutely incredible, man. The world was lit up. 2026, come on, man. You know what? I couldn't wait long enough for 2025 to go away. 2025 is done. It's in the history books. And now we got 2026 to look forward to, full of promise, full of vigor, full of splendor. Look, I just hope everybody has a very successful, happy 2026, full of good health and prosperity. That's the biggest thing, guys. So, welcome. I'm your host, Shiraz, and welcome to Duality 7X. For anyone who's new here, we try to cover all the latest and trending stories from the world of MMA, UFC, WWE, and the world of the wacky, wild, gunslinging, wild west of boxing. And today we are covering boxing. Boxing at its finest, guys. No fluff, no fillers, no biasness, just real fight talk, guys. If you guys like and hear what you see, all we ask is that you please smash the like and subscribe button. It really helps us out with the algorithm. So let's get into it, guys. We're going to talk about Jake Paul. We're going to talk about the WBA rankings. We're going to talk about what this actually means for Jake's boxing career. Where is it headed? Because this isn't just a rankings update. This also could be a reality check. So let's break it down clean and simple, guys. No fluff. Jake Paul, hats off to Jake Paul for going into the ring and for really attempting to steal one from underneath Anthony Joshua. And you never know. In a parallel universe, anything could have happened. As Ariel Helwani said, you could slip on a banana peel in the middle of the ring. He could have dodged a little bit more and then clipped him a couple times with a couple good body shots, maybe some jabs, and then hit him with a clean right hook. You never know. That could have sealed the deal. But it didn't happen for Jake, right? So now we need to break this down because Jake was knocked out in the 6th round, 1 minute 33 seconds into the round, and it was lights out for Jake. Okay, so no announcement, no statement. The WBA just removed him. And this all comes, like, seriously, right after the biggest moment of his career. You know, and it just ended up going sideways. I mean, you know, getting knocked out by such an elite fighter, a former 2-time unified world heavyweight champion, Anthony Joshua, that loss stings, right? And it just handed him his first stoppage defeat in his career. I mean, not only that, it broke his jaw in 2 places, realigned his teeth, where he had to have his mouth wired shut. He had to go into surgery immediately, and basically it slammed the brakes on his boxing endeavors, at least for the short term. And so whatever he was trying to plan on next, that's definitely put on the shelf for now. So look, this matters. Why? Because Jake matters. When it comes to boxing, you have to admit, Jake has re-energized a lot of fight fans. Notice how I said fight fans. I didn't just say boxing fans. He's reignited that inner fire that a lot of fight fans have been missing for quite some time. That pilot light went on, and then the furnace just went off. And guys, a lot of people are starting to get interested in boxing again. Yes, I said that. Jake Paul made boxing great again. NBA made boxing great again. MBGA. Anyways, like, so look, when it comes to Jake's rankings, there's always going to be controversy. Now, you know, unfortunately for Jake, I think he's a talented fighter, guys. I mean, he did what he could. It just wasn't his night. Yeah, one could argue that he might have bit off a little bit more than he could chew. It's quite possible. But that said, you know, and it wasn't his first dance at the rodeo, guys. I mean, even in his sparring, he fought. He fought Frankie Sanchez. You know, he sparred with Frankie Sanchez. He fought with a few other, like, elite world heavyweight fighters. And so yeah, he could definitely stay in the ring. It's just it just wasn't his night. Now, here's the thing. For Jake, wherever he goes now, it's always going to be like controversy is going to follow him. It is what it is, and it's, you know, sometimes it kind of sucks for a guy like Jake, right? Because he's really trying to build. I feel that he's really genuine and wanting to build a name here in the sport and for himself. But he has controversy is going to follow him. Okay, just because of a lot of things, for obvious reasons. You know, I mean, Jake is out there. He's outspoken. He tells it like it is. He doesn't hide anything. So he's out there. I mean, but this is what makes him so marketable. This is why people want to see him fight. Whether they want to see him win, lose, that's debatable, but people want to see him fight. All right? And so he got into the WBA. He got into the WBA top 15 by beating Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. All right, and that's a name that carries some serious weight, but not exactly fear, but it carries a lot of weight, especially in 2025. I feel that Jake controlled a lot of that fight, and then Julio Cesar Chavez started to turn it on at the tail end of the fight when it started to get a little bit, when he started to lose a lot of that runway because he was getting closer to the end of those rounds, and it was a little too late. And then everyone knows what happened after that. Days after that, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. was detained by ICE, and I think he was even deported, or possibly being deported. And I don't know if that's going through the legal court system right now or what, but that's kind of where we had it. So people were like, wow, Jake Paul is, the other thing too is when Jake was about to take on Gervonta Tank Davis, if you guys remember that was supposed to happen on November 14th, also in Miami. That fight fell through for obvious reasons. We've covered it extensively. That said, Jake, Anthony Joshua took this fight on short notice. He got 6 weeks out from December 19th, and then he started to train, and then, anyways, it is what it is, and, he had to do a lot of pressers, a lot of traveling and everything to sell the show. The sanctioning bodies decided that they're going to make this fight a professional fight, unlike the fight that Jake was going to have with Gervonta Tank Davis, which was supposed to be an exhibition fight. This fight between Jake and Anthony was ranked. It was going to be a fight for rankings. So it did carry a lot of weight. It meant a lot for Jake. This was his opportunity to show to the world that he belongs. Now, in all fairness, I don't think it's, in all fairness, but it's not really fair. Jake fought an elite heavyweight fighter. Jake is truly a cruiserweight. Now, although we talked about him fighting at 223 against Mike Tyson, Jake is not a heavyweight. He's not. He's a really good cruiserweight. And that's the and maybe potentially light heavyweight, but between cruiser and light, that's where his sweet spot is. Anthony Joshua was just, it was like Jake Paul fighting Godzilla. All right? And it's happened in the past. You had Roy Jones Jr. He went on and, he went up, he moved up a couple classes, weight classes, and he stole the show. He did what he did. Like, he was absolutely incredible. But I don't know if you want to compare Jake Paul to a prime Roy Jones Jr., but it could have happened. If Jake won, if he beat Anthony Joshua, then unfortunately for Jake, it could have actually got a lot worse. There could have been some discussions about potentially him fighting Tyson Fury or Alexander Usyk or Daniel Dubois, or and then it just gets ugly and ugly and ugly, and he put himself in a really bad situation, because if he didn't get knocked out by Anthony Joshua, there's a strong possibility he would have got knocked out somewhere along those lines with any one of those guys, and maybe it could have been worse. So maybe this is, in a way, it's kind of good. It's a reality check for Jake. Unfortunately, he lost, but fortunately for him, he survived. And he can rebuild his health, and then he can go and take on fighters maybe either in the cruiserweight or light heavyweight, if he really is seriously interested in wanting to win a world title. Now, a lot of people are not happy. A lot of people are not happy about the WBA putting them in their rankings, and fans were not buying it. And even though the WBA defended their ranking system, it felt kind of somewhat fragile, to say the least. And here's what nobody's really talking about, right? Jake hasn't even been fighting like a cruiserweight. Okay? 2 of his last 3 fights were outside of that division. Okay, there was a lot of talk about exhibitions, which I already talked about. Then came the heavyweight. Then came Joshua. I mean, at that point, like cruiser rank, like you can't even put him in a cruiserweight ranking because it didn't really even make sense because Jake is just fighting kind of all over the place. I mean, he almost fought Gervonta Tank Davis, guys. There was a 70-pound difference between Gervonta and Jake Paul. So how do you even rank him then? You still rank him as a cruiserweight? I mean, in reality, that fight wouldn't even exist. I mean, it would never be ranked by a professional sanctioning body. Never. The only way that fight would carry any kind of merit would be either outside in a back alley, outside of a bar between two guys, or an exhibition match. But that never happened. That never happened. So at that point, really talking about cruiserweight ranking just doesn't make sense, guys. It doesn't, right? So to me, this feels honestly like a lot of punishment. It feels like more like a correction, if anything, right? The WBA basically said, all right, Jake, time to pick a lane. You can't float between divisions, dude, and chase spectacle fights, like chasing all these money fights and still expect a world ranking to hold weight. It doesn't work that way. And Jake kind of did this to himself, guys. Honestly, at the end of the day, he did. He's always talking about titles. He posed with champions. I remember that iconic picture between him and Alexander Usyk. Holy schmoly. The rumor mills went off the grid. It almost broke the internet. People were talking about a possible showdown between these guys. But, I mean, his actions kept drifting, right? I mean, then there was talks about potentially, and then there was talks about him taking on other potential heavyweight fighters, Tyson Fury, maybe even a rematch against Tommy Fury. And then Gervonta Tank Davis came along, and people were utterly confused because of the serious discrepancy in weight between these guys. And then that fell through the cracks, and then Jake and MVP Promotions and Akisa Bidarian, they're reaching out to fighters all across the board, including Terrence Crawford. Holy, that would have been interesting. That obviously never came to fruition. That would have been really, really interesting to see what happened there, if that would have ever happened. He's even reached out to Deontay Wilder. He's reached out to all kinds of guys, all kinds of guys. Even Ryan Garcia potentially was in the mix, and then Nate Diaz wanted to fight him, and then who else wanted to fight him? There was a possibility of Andre Ward. I mean, Andre Ward hasn't fought in 7 or 8 years, and Andre Ward retired undefeated, a world champion himself. And I mean, I'm sure he still has it. That would have been an interesting fight. So, yeah, Jake has to pick a lane. I kind of agree with the WBA here, right, guys? Honestly, look, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if every other fighter has to adhere to the policies and guidelines that are set forth by the sanctioning body, then why not Jake, right? But here's, you can't just have it both ways, guys. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Jake has been lucky. He's been able to do that. He's been able to get away with it. But now he can't. So that's going to be a whole conversation kind of to see what happens down the road with him. If there's going to be even a possibility of him fighting another ranked fighter in the interim future when he heals up, and then how that's going to look, and then he's going to have to stay in that lane. So let's talk numbers, because a lot of people want to know exactly what did this excitement equate to big financial sense? Did it make financial sense for Netflix and for a lot of the sponsors and advertisers that were behind this? Well, without going into too much detail, guys, I mean, you have to understand, common sense will tell you that Jake Paul, his fights, they pull a lot of views. They do. I mean, I don't know. Maybe not like before, which is weird because I still felt that there was a lot of increase. There was a lot of like movement up, from his fight against Tyson because everyone wanted to know who's next, and I think it got really confusing for people when the whole Gervonta Davis thing kind of fell through the cracks, and people felt that maybe it was more Jake that kind of backed out of that fight, and then the popularity started to kind of, the momentum kind of shifted a little bit. Maybe people started to lose a little bit of interest. I mean, it's possible, but here's the thing: when Jake took on Tyson, we're talking about massive, massive numbers, guys. There was big interest in this whole crossover chaos. I mean, you got Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet. Iron Mike Tyson. Yes, he's been retired. His last fight hasn't been like since 2015 when he fought Roy Jones Jr. And that too, he wasn't like Mike Tyson wasn't, in real prime shape. I mean, he did what he did, but I mean, if Tyson was at least fighting actively, even like maybe once or twice in the year, he might have come in a little bit stronger. But that said, it drew in massive numbers. It was solid. Those numbers were definitely solid from Netflix's perspective, but not dominant, right? And we're talking about like $108 million, like worldwide. That's crazy. I mean, that tells me something important, that people aren't necessarily growing with Jake. I'm sorry, people were really on Jake's bandwagon or wagon or whatever you want to call it at that time, because that's the fight that interested them the most. All right, I think Terrence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez brought in 41 million globally worldwide, which is less than half of what he was able to do with Mike Tyson. So now this is why Jake Paul carries a lot of weight in the world of boxing and crossover boxing. All right, but then his numbers against Anthony Joshua fell drastically. They were at 33 million. So that tells us a few things. I mean, there's still hype, a lot of hype, but are people still with Jake? Are they choosing sides here? Because, I mean, the casuals show up for a spectacle, but then the boxing fans are still kind of skeptical, right? And if the drama doesn't stay real, then those numbers start to drop super, super fast. So the real question comes down to is, what if this is the turning point? Like, what if Jake Paul drops the rankings talk completely and just stays in open, stays in, like, say, open weight? He's flexible, casual, on call. He's willing to go up and down when needed for any of those big money fights, because that's what made Jake Paul so famous and MVP promotions on top of the food chain, right? Or does Jake actually commit to becoming a cruiserweight, or even moving down one class below that, or moving up to light heavyweight potentially, and really tries to earn it the hard way? Because right now, that path is split. One road is going down legitimacy. Another road is going down spectacle lane. So the question comes down to is Jake going to chase the money? Because eventually those fights are going to start to fizzle out. People are going to get less interested until somebody else comes onto the scene and people are all excited again, and then that hype and that momentum shift starts to change. And does Jake say, you know what, I've made enough money. Now I want to prove to the world, I want to prove to myself that I need to chase gold and do it and earn it. So, I mean, after that whole Joshua knockout, guys, I mean, that choice honestly just got way more serious, because now Jake has to make a decision. So, look, I don't believe that this is the end of Jake Paul. or Jake Paul boxing, you have to understand that the people that Jake is aligned with, MVP Promotions, Nakisa Bidarian, these guys are solid. Nakisa is a marketing genius, unbelievable manager. He knows what he's doing. And Jake is a smart guy, right? He's got his brother in his corner as well, too, Logan. These guys have made a big, big name for themselves. But the other question comes down to it, is the illusion of crossover fighting starting to kind of fade off, right? I mean, to the point where people are just starting to get tired of it, growing old. There was that whole discussion about all these superhero movies coming out, and Superman, and you got Fantastic Four, and now Spider-Man, and Batman's coming out. Are people just getting tired? Are they getting superhero fatigue? Marvel's Avengers, Thunderbolts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when you keep hearing about Jake Paul fighting this guy, fighting that guy, he's only human, guys, right? But if it's just Jake Paul, are there any other crossover fighters? Andrew Tate fought Chase Damour. That was on December 20th, and that didn't end well with Andrew Tate. And so do you have? Are there any other influencer crossover fighters that are coming out of the woodwork? KSI. All I see KSI do is just kind of jump around all the time. Is he actually interested in fighting or no? If he's not, that's fine. He's a very successful man. He's probably one of the, big time elite influencers out there on social media, and he's doing unbelievable business entrepreneur. But I don't know. Is KSI still there, or is somebody else interested in wanting to take that spot? Maybe Speed, perhaps. Maybe he wants to get in the ring with somebody. I don't know. So the question really comes down to is, what is Jake going to do, right? Because we know that he's being stripped of his rankings from the WBA. Well, not really stripped, but he's no longer ranked by the WBA. He's not in the top 15 anymore. So I don't think this is the end of Jake Paul. I don't think this is the end of Jake Paul boxing, MVP Promotions, or Nakisa Bidarian. I think they're going to have to reinvent themselves right now at this point. Unfortunately for Jake, because of that knockout and because of the injuries he has been affected by, it does put a damper on a lot of things, especially a potential comeback. So it is going to take some time for Jake to heal. If he just got knocked out, he was okay. He just needed some time to recoup. We could have probably seen Jake Paul fighting again in the next few months, right? But this one, I think, is going to last a little while longer because it stings a while longer. And even when his jaw is healed, people are saying that even after 8-9 months, his jaws may only be at 80-90%. So does he need a full year off? And then if he takes that much time off, not training and everything, how does that affect his health, his stamina, and his desire to wanting to fight professional fighters in efforts of one day obtaining gold himself, like a world title? So that's a $60,000 question, guys. Rankings do matter, and eventually reality shows up, and sometimes quietly and sometimes like this. So anyways, the bottom line is Jake losing, his WBA ranking isn't shocking, but some would argue could be overdue. That said, I if you want to call it an experiment or just his I don't know why people would say experiment, right? I'm trying to think of another. So, I think this is more like a journey. I think this is more like a journey for Jake. And I think this journey isn't dead by any stretch. I think it's just being reset. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Jake. So, not sure if he wants to continue to be a boxer, but I know he really has been trying. So it would be a shame to see him not do that anymore. I think he's good for at least another few more fights. So let's see what happens. Let's give the guy some space and give him an opportunity to heal up. And maybe he could come back and be the biggest boxer that he could ever be. And maybe he will go down that path of legitimacy and strive for gold. It's possible it could happen. So he's got to decide, does he want to be a boxer or does he want to be the biggest boxing event in the room? So anyways, guys, he can't take both forever. He was able to, but now it's come time. He has to make a decision. So what do you guys think? Should Jake Paul earn his way back into the rankings, or should he just stop chasing belts altogether and just lean more into the spectacle craze of this crossover influencer boxing hype that has earned him lots and lots and lots of dollars? So let me know in the comments, guys, and please make sure to smash a like and subscribe. Join us here on Duality 7X for more fight talk. I look forward to catching you guys tomorrow.